Kia ora. Kia ora tātou. Kia ora e te whānau. Ko tai mai nei ki tēnei huhuinga. Ki te kōrero i ngā kaupapa. Kanu i te hari mō tō koutou manawa nui. Ki te hui mai. Ki te āwhina i ngā kōrero. E pā ana ki tēnei hui o Whānau Ora. Ko mutu noioho ngā kōrero mō tēnei wā. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Ko wai au, ko te aroa te waka. Ko matawhaura te maunga. Ko te roto iti e kitea e ihinga e ariki ai a kahumata momoi te moana. Ko Ngāti Piki o te iwi. Ko Ngāti Hinekura te hapu. Ko Paunama Nui te marae. Ko Haumai Tawhiti te whare tūpuna. Ko Hinekukutirangi te wharekai. Ko Hariata ahau. And I think that gives me the setting for my kōrero. I'm doing a kōrero about our te Arawa response to COVID. Yesterday, I think we talked about, in our pōhiri, we talked about whakapapa and whanaungatanga and hononga. And that, to me, is the marae. That's where I get my grounding. That's where I take my lead from. And I'm fortunate to have Uncle Ken here today, who's one of our pai from Haumai Tawhiti. It's a place where I grew up, I was nurtured. It's a place where I get my leadership from. So when I'm talking about a te ara COVID response, I go back to my whare, Haumai Tawhiti. We've had the privilege of having many events there, and there's a lot of planning that goes into it. For me, the COVID response was just an extension of our maraetanga, of being at the marae and utilising all the skills that we have at our marae, but we had them in spades loads more when I looked at our te arawa response. And we're not just talking about providers, we're talking about our land trusts, we're talking about our runanga, we're talking about our iwi organisations. So, when I think about the marae kaitiakitanga, our pai gives us our direction, our kai karanga gives us our calling everybody together. Our ringawera are providing that manaki and the sustenance, and then we have our kai āwhina, always keeping our surrounding areas tidy, and our kai mahi, our one, they go out there gathering the kai to feed our manuhiri. So what is the purpose for COVID? The COVID was the same for us. It was actually about, the why was looking after all our kaumātua. Now our kaumātua to us are the real gold, because they're the ones who keep our marae going. They are the ahi kā. They're there all the time to maintain it when we're at work. It's our koeki that will always be there. So, in January 2020, I had to go back so many times because it seems like such a long time ago, 2020, when COVID first became a reality for us. And so we had to get together because that was when the global health emergency called us to be prepared. Prepare as best we can, because we knew there was no vaccinations had been done. So it was actually going to be quite a threat to the way we as Māori live, because we live collectively. We don't live in our homes. We live as a collective people. And I guess when the 23rd of March came and the announcement came that 25th of March, that was all going to be taken away from us. That was when we were going to be isolated from one another. How could we utilise the system that has always been known to us for many, many years to get through? So that's when it was our iwi that responded first. It was our iwi that had called a hui to make sure that there was kaitiaki for our koeke. That was the main purpose, was the kaitiaki for the koeke. It was about making sure they were assigned to go and be the one to go and deliver kai, do the phone calls, do the messages, do the checkups, because it was going to be a very foreign thing to them to not be able to go out of their homes. So, you know, I know I'm talking about Whānau Ora, but actually we were just a part of a Te Arawa response. There was a much bigger response than us. So we had our Te Arawa Lakes Trust who came in and did a huge amount of mahi, because there was the collective of land trusts, iwi entities, Māori providers, even, you know, our Lakes DHB, or now Te Whatu Ora Lakes. We had TPK, we had data analysts, we had communications team. We all had to come together as one to be the marae going forward. So for us, the marae became a place to do our outreach as well for flu vaccinations. These are for the ones who I guess we needed to reach out to the community, and we had to do that through a drive-through system. There was no other way to become still remaining connected. So our marae became the outreach, and our koeka got used to driving through for flu vaccinations and just to touch base. And we had to do that in the empty car parks as well, because there was nobody setting up at our shopping centres. And for us as a Māori provider, and for Te Arawa Whānau Ora, we knew we still had to be out there. We had to be bold and be amongst the people, because there was uncertainty, there was anxiety. So we had to be that reassurance for those ones who were out there in our community. As the levels dropped, you know, and Whānau Ora came on board with all our hygiene boxes. We got saturated with hygiene boxes, but, you know, it was a great way for us to still be with our people. So, you know, while we were doing flu vaccinations and swabbing, we had the opportunity to awhi our whānau and have hygiene boxes for distribution. So, you know, Whānau Ora, thank you very much. That was really appreciated by our community. And in the end, a lot of those hygiene boxes that came down to Te Arawa to be put together, a lot of them our koeke did, because they wanted something to be as part of the response. So, you know, it was one of those things that they were the first ones to be able to come together and be a part of that. What we did know, it was the loneliness of koeke and the connection through kaitiaki that was so important to them. What worried the koeke more was they were worried about the younger ones. They were worried about the whānau and their tamariki. So, you know, we were giving them all these boxes of groceries, and they were saying, here, take it back to the whānau who need that. Because they are used to being reliant on what they have. So, you know, it was, again, it's a reflection on our whakapapa, on our whanaungatanga, the cousins, that connection, and kaitiakitanga. But we also had the role versatility, because sometimes on the weekend you'll get a phone call and it's from one of the cousins, kia ora cuz, and you know, oh hello, something's gone wrong, we need to go and have a kōrero, or somebody saying, look, one of our koeke hasn't had their flu vaccination, will your team go and do a home visit? Absolutely. You know, it was a pleasure and a privilege to be able to do that. So that was 2020. 2021 came around, and then we had to, you know, then came the vaccine rollout to the general population. It was done in age groups. Well, you know, that was another that was something that we had to try and come to terms with, because we knew that actually it wasn't going to be very successful for our people. So how could we make it more relevant for our population of Māori? Because we could see from the stats that while our koike were really good because they had the awhi of the kaitiaki to see them through that process, they were up there. So they were coming in, or they were being taken to the marae and having the vaccinations delivered out at the marae. But I think by late August, when things were turning pear-shaped and the population wasn't being so inclined, so it was a real whittle for us as providers to say, well, how can we make this happen for our people? What would it take for us to be able to provide the service? And you know what? We went back to being Māori. We went back to saying, well, if we had this at the marae, what would we do? Well, we'd make it fun for one thing, because it was such a sterile, clinical way of doing anything. Who wants to go and do that? You might as well go to the shearing shed and just, go through the whole process. So it was actually about creating an environment that people would look at and want to come in and want to be a part of, and bring your whānau, not just the age bands that we talked about. So I guess we had a week to stand up a drive-through clinic, a drive-through vaccination clinic. And we were lucky that we could actually do drive-through clinics anywhere. We could do them at the rugby league clubs. If you were invited there, sure. We had the whole of the rugby fields there. And we could even do rats testing at the same time, which was frowned upon because they talked about cross-contamination. But, that's the technical, that's the 5%. When we do, and you can work through the 5%. We're not silly. So and now it's become common practice. So you just got to test those boundaries and make them workable. We had the marae come on board. They wanted their whānau to have the same opportunity. Come and get your vaccinations. Come and be part of a whānau event, a fun whānau event. We even took it to the emergency housing. So we've been in the news lately to do with all our emergency housing. They're not all bad. Some of them are there through circumstances that are out of their control. And we wanted them to feel part of our Te Arawa response. Because as manuhiri to our rohe, they deserve that. Te Arawa have always been very good at our tourism. We manaaki. So the manaaki extends to anybody who is in our rohe. So we had the swabbing centres, we had the marae vaccine programs, we also had the challenges of the technical 5%. This other C word, the cold chain, which was such a mission to get over. I think the training for our workforce had to be done so quickly because that hadn't been factored into actually making it a wider distribution. So we did set up the drive-through in August 2021, and we started delivering on the 1st of September. And that was a huge collective effort from so many organisations. As providers, we can't do it ourselves. We have to actually get we had our Māori wardens come on board. These are people that are familiar to our rohe. We had to build a workforce. So we built a workforce from our people who are seen in the community. We had to develop the drive-through process. We had to learn a new IT system. So we had to get people working to the top of their scope. We had to get an IT system all connected. But the one thing that actually drew the people in was our manaakitanga. So the hangi in concert took on a whole new role for Rotorua here, where it was for tourism, it was for our own whānau. And you know, the enjoyment, I guess, from our people, from having that available to them, was just, you know, so really welcome. They could sit in their cars and we would play the music, you know, so that they could sing along, or they could wind the windows up and be in their own little bubble, you know. And we had people just talking to them in the cars, making sure they're okay. Have an ice cream, you know, while you're waiting. And then on your way out, ane, here's your hangi. We did a survey actually, and it was quite phenomenal. I think 80% people came to the drive-thru to get a hangi, which was awesome. But for us, I guess the lessons we learned on all of this was actually we had to do our succession planning. So, you know, whilst we were all on the front line, we were all on the front line. It didn't matter if you were a nurse or a marshal, a traffic marshal. You know, we even had Monty, and our kaumātua handing out the hangi, because they wanted to be a part of it as well. So it didn't matter who you were, if you were part of it, you were standing on that front line. So and that's created that succession of leadership, because, you know, we've built some really great leaders through this process, and they'll go back to their marae and be the leaders for their whānau. They became the leaders for their whānau anyway, but they took it a step further to go back to the marae. So, you know, we had centres of excellence. We had our whai kōrero, we had our kai karanga, we had our marae runners, we had our chief cooks, we had our dining room people, and most importantly, we had our kai gatherers, and all of them have had to step up into the different roles. Somebody said you have to wear so many hats at one time. Well, yes, that's right. You may be handing out the hangi one moment and fronting the media the next moment to give out all that information. So that's what it looked like for us. That was our experience, I guess, for Te Arawa. And it hasn't finished, just because the mandates have gone. But there's actually a lot of work still to do. And we're looking at different ways of keeping that connection alive with our community, because we can't go back to doing what we used to do, because we know that didn't work. So as Te Arawa, we're looking at ways we can do things differently. And that takes a whole lot of people all coming together again for our future going forward. So, no te raudo, nāku te raudo, ka ora ai te iwi. Kia ora tātou. I didn't even finish my...
Oh, come on.
I didn't even finish that. There they are. There's our stars.
Sorry, Ken, sorry.
Haere ki mua.
Awesome. Awe te kōrero.
Haere ki mua. Whakararangi. Cuz, over there. Right over here. I'll be the kaitājaki. Get over there. In the front. Right along. Right over here. Haere. Donna. Tēnei mata e tu atu nei, i te matangaho, i te